2007. Lionel Messi, already a global superstar, poses for a photo at the Camp Nou with a baby. But that baby, he wasn't just anybody. That baby was Lamine Yamal. Little did Messi know he might just be holding the heir to his throne. He's the youngest player to ever debut for Barcelona.
Messi wasn't doing what this kid's been doing at 17 and 16 years old.
The youngest ever to score for Spain.
He's a chosen one after Messi.
And the youngest to carry the hopes of millions.
This is not just a gem. This is the next coming.
But who really is Lamine Yamal? Where did he come from? And how does a boy go from a photo in Messi's arms to become his successor? This is the story of football's next big superstar. Before he was called the next Messi, and before he was playing in front of 90,000 fans, his story began with a woman who left everything behind. Meet Fatima Al-Maribi, 40 years old and seriously struggling to provide for her 5 children. In desperate search of a better life, she came up with a plan. She worked and worked until she saved as much money as she possibly could. She then packed her life into a suitcase and made her way down to Tangier. Here she was able to get a ferry to Tarifa in Spain. She arrived in Spain with nothing except a dream, a better life for her children. Fatima settled in Mataró, a working class seaside town northeast of Barcelona. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was stable. And here she was able to get a job making more money at a campsite. And this was a woman who couldn't stand being without her children, but she knew what had to be done. And because of this, she was able to move her kids one by one to Spain to provide them a better future. Fatima's second son, Munir, grew up in no streets. He found work as a painter, a quiet life, but a steady one. But everything changed the day he met a young waitress named Sheila. Munir had fallen completely in love, and before long, the two were married. And then at just 21 years old, Sheila gave birth to their son, Lamine Yamal. Yamal was just a few months old when this photo was taken. Messi, the greatest of all time, cradling a baby in his arms. Now you might be asking, how does something like this even happen? What are the odds that Lionel Messi is holding the child who would become the next best thing at Barcelona? Surely there had to be some sort of connection, a family tie or a football link. But the truth is, it was complete luck, a bizarre twist of fate. You see, UNICEF had organised a raffle in Yamal's neighbourhood, a chance for one lucky family to take a photo with a Barcelona player at the Camp Nou. Yamal's father entered, not really thinking much of it, yet somehow they won. And the player they got paired up with? Lionel Messi. And with that single photo, that brief encounter, a seed was planted. But dreams come harder when the money is tight. Yamal clearly had talent at a very young age, but his family couldn't afford to sign him up to the local football club, Rocafonda FC. So instead, he made the streets his training ground. He spent hours and hours on the concrete pitch next door, perfecting his touch every minute he could. And all around him, one number was constant: 304. It was spray painted on the walls, trash bins, everywhere you look, 304 was there. And this wasn't random, it was the postcode 08304, a symbol of his neighbourhood, Rocafonda. And years later, when Yamal scored his first goal for Barcelona, he made a subtle gesture, a tribute to the place that raised him. Because for Yamal, Rocafonda wasn't just home, it was the beginning of everything. When Yamal was just 3 years old, his parents separated. He moved with his mother Sheila to La Torreta, a modest town about 30 minutes from Mataró. Life wasn't easy, but Sheila did what she had to do. She found a job at McDonald's, and it was there, in the most unexpected of places, that fate intervened again. Sheila met a man named Inocente Diaz, a local with a deep love for football, known by his friends as Kubala, a nickname borrowed from the Barcelona legend. And Diaz wasn't just a football fan, he actually worked at the local club in La Torreta, and when he heard Sheila's son had a gift, he was the one who encouraged her to sign him up. And it was that simple decision that would change everything. Yamal started training at a grassroots club in La Torreta, and even when he later returned to Mataró, Diaz remained part of his story, often driving him to training when his father couldn't. He would go on to describe Yamal as a quiet and shy, reserved boy. But on the pitch, everybody could see it. There was something different about him. Lower league scouts would often show up to their games, looking for talent they could shape and sell. But Yamal's case was different. And one day, a man in the stands called Barcelona and told them, "You have to watch this kid play." And Barcelona listened. Yamal had a trial. It took just one session and they knew they had to get him. Yamal was now part of La Masia, the most legendary academy in the history of football. Home to the 8th time Ballon d'Or winner Lionel Messi, and not just him. Xavi, Iniesta, Piqué, Puyol, Fabregas and Sergio Busquets. All players who went on to do incredible things. But what came next, no one expected. You see, most players spend years working through the levels. But at just 11 years old, he was already moving up age groups. And by 13, coaches were comparing him to the best they've ever seen. And at 15, he wasn't just training with older players, he was dominating them. So in April 2023, Barcelona made a decision that would shock the football world.
It looks like Barcelona have found their new gem, 15-year-old Lamine Yamal. He came off the bench yesterday in a 4-0 win to become the youngest player to ever play for Barcelona.
A record breaker already. And then in 2024, things are about to get serious.
The host of the Euro 2024 will be Germany.
Historically, Spain haven't been winners of tournaments. Historically, Spain were like England.
And who's scoring?
Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal.
No. Ready? He's 16 years old.
Don't want to get carried away, but boy oh boy.
England 1, Spain 2. My heart's broken. We lose in the final again.
Spain are the champions of Europe again.
Spain had won the Euros and Yamal was at the very heart of it. He scored that wonder goal in the semi-final, he made more assists than anybody, and he even managed to finish his homework. We have never seen anybody do what he did at this age. Never. Only Pelé comes to mind, scoring 2 goals in a World Cup final at 17, but Yamal was a year younger than that until the final when he finally turned 17 the day before. So the company we're talking about here is the very best. Yamal went on to win the Young Player of the tournament and his performances will go down in history. But the attention now on Yamal was certainly global. From this day forward, all eyes were going to be on him just to see what he could do next. Everyone had their questions. Will he live up to the hype? Or will he flop like so many wonder kids have done before him? Because for every Messi, for every Mbappe, there have been dozens that never made it. The world of football is littered with names we once shouted in excitement. Freddie Adu, Bojan, Alexander Pato, Golden Boys tipped for greatness. Players who were crowned before they even really got started. They were all meant to be the very next best thing, but hype is often a double-edged sword. They were put into the spotlight too early, marketed and magnified before they had reached anywhere near their potential. And when things didn't go so perfectly, maybe form dipped, injuries came, or the expectations just became too unbearable, the world had moved on, because in football, you're only as good as your last highlight. We've seen so many players crushed by the pressure, because the terrifying part is that talent is actually not enough. To survive as a wonder kid, you need more than just a good left foot. You need patience, resilience, and a maturity most adults don't even possess. Which brings us back to Lamine Yamal. He is now the face of a nation, the heir to a legacy, and the subject of headlines, TikToks, transfer rumours all before his 18th birthday. The pressure, it's already immense. And history tells us not everybody survives that. But with Yamal, it's hard not to get carried away because this time it just feels so different. Going into the 24-25 season, he was going to be watched constantly. Real Madrid has snatched the previous title led by a terrifying trio of Mbappe, Bellingham and Vinicius, so Barcelona fans were desperate for redemption. And they got it. With 2 games to spare, Hansi Flick's Barcelona has secured the league title. And they didn't stop there. They also lifted the Supercopa and the Copa del Rey. Barcelona had done the triple and Yamal, still at age 17, was at the very core of it. 8 goals, 15 assists and a goal contribution every 116 minutes. But those numbers only scratch the surface. What those stats don't really capture is how Yamal changed those games. He has this ridiculous vision, confidence and presence that just makes defenders hesitate. And without Yamal, it's hard to imagine Barcelona lifting that trophy. He now already has 2 La Ligas to his name. For perspective, Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greatest ever to play the game, won only 2 in his entire 9-year run in Spain. It's been a ridiculous start to Yamal's career, and that's pretty much where his story ends so far. He's already done what most players dream of. And yet this isn't the end of his story, it's just the start. And while one teenager might be redefining greatness on the pitch, elsewhere 2 Hollywood actors have built a football empire from the ground up. If you haven't seen this story yet, that's a video worth watching too. Thanks everyone for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.